You're listening to Happy Hour Hustle, a podcast featuring the musings and witty remarks of me, Kim Bodie. We can promise at least 2 terrible jokes, which I will laugh at, and at least 10 minutes of incredible thought leadership from some amazing and influential guests. So grab a glass of iced red wine and join us for one heck of a wild ride. Also, be prepared for a dog bark or 3. There will at least be one. I should have had some wine. Welcome, everyone, to another podcast of the Happy Hour Hustle. We've got a special guest today right out of New York. So I've always wanted to say that, and I don't really get a chance to do that. So we're talking social media and digital marketing today. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Spartan races. So we have Anthony Yepes. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
And he actually used to run all of that. So we're going to hear all the things about Anthony today. So Anthony, you want to quick introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey guys, Anthony Yepes. I'm coming out of New York, as mentioned. Previously director of social media at Spartan Race, best known for, our global obstacle course racing series, and also, a few other things from merchandise to fitness programs, podcasts, things of that nature. So yeah, I spent the past 4 years there leading the team in social and being a part of some really great stuff that I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later on. And then before that was in the agency world at Cogent, where I got a chance to do some really cool stuff on like Super Bowl celebrity level influencer marketing, and really got some great experience there. So avid marketing Twitter community participant, very vocal on social about the world of social media and the managers and just the kind of like things that we go through as professionals in a very tough marketing world right now, especially with 2020 and everything that's happened. So excited to be here and talk shop with you guys.
Well, we always have to start out with asking what your drink of choice is, because this is called the Happy Hour Hustle.
Oh, absolutely. My drink of choice, I'll start with my shot. I'm definitely a Jameson guy.
Nice.
I like to say I have a little Irish in me, which,
You're not a sipper, you're a shot?
I'm a shot guy.
Oh, love it.
Let's take a couple down. I like to have that with a beer, German beer, just, wheat-based beer. It doesn't really matter which one it is, Blue Moon or...
Wide open, yeah.
Yeah, pretty open, taste for beer there.
Jameson. Love it. That might actually be our best answer ever. Most everyone's like, well, I'll drink like maybe a vodka tonic or something. And I'm like, this is so boring. Like, come on. Like, and you're just like, I do the shots.
Yeah,
so I will tell you the only shot that I do is a blowjob. And it's such a like girl shot. It totally is. It's basically it's a dessert. That's exactly what it is. I don't even think you can get buzzed off of it.
It's all about the experience.
Right. Which I'm also terrible at. So fantastic. Okay. So before we kind of jump into things, I did, which nobody's surprised that listens to podcasts. I did a little bit of online stalking of you, because that's what we're really good at. You participated in the Spartan races, correct? Was that before you ever came on to work for them?
Yeah, that was actually before. I was what you call a super fan of the brand. And I was racing for a couple of years before that, got my trifecta, which is like the crown jewel of being a Spartan, and just was really into the community. And then just by chance of starting kind of like a fan account on Instagram and it quickly growing to like 50,000 followers within a couple months, I caught the eye of their marketing team at the time. And it just so happened that I was at a marketing agency, I'm in the marketing space, and they were looking to bring it in-house. So yeah, my love for carrying heavy objects around a mountain.
Yeah.
And climbing on the barbed wire worked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all right.
So what do you attest like that rapid growth to? Is it because like that kind of like that audience or that group of people are just like very like involved, or?
Yeah. I mean, super passionate audience over there at Spartan. But the growth of that account was mainly because I was featuring the community and kind of like really bringing them to the forefront, which is a large part of my social strategy as a professional and any brand that I work with. So with doing that, the community really caught on, and they really appreciated how much attention they were getting. And it wasn't about, the brand or a sale or a promotion. It was all about the people. And people just loved it. And, I practiced a lot of the things that I knew as a social media manager with that account, and a lot of it proved to be true. And then I translated that stuff over once, I officially, started to head up the team there.
Well, and you pointed out several things too, like, and we'll get into like, what does it really mean to be a director of social media? But one of the things I've noticed that you've posted about on LinkedIn is specifically that you can't forget the people and you can't forget the relationship side of it. So talk a little bit about like what it does mean to, again, like be a director of social media, and what's a day-to-day. I love when people ask me that and I'm in public relations and I was like, I don't know. I don't sleep. That's part of it. So
that's a lot.
So yeah, talk a little bit about your day-to-day.
Yeah. I mean, I think in a traditional setting, perhaps a director of social would be different than what it was at Spartan, but for me specifically, it was, a lot of the high level strategy stuff and making sure, teams are aligned internally with, anything that's hitting social, and just, making sure that we're executing against the content strategy and the calendar that we have for that week or that month, and, checking in with leadership and, CMO and everyone else, making sure just, everything is headed in the right direction and we're executing any projects that we have outstanding and working through campaigns. But a lot of it for me in this situation was working very closely with my team. I had anywhere from 2 to 5 people on my team. I was
going to ask you.
Managers and content creators and analysts and things of that nature. So, we worked very closely. We did a great job at, doing community management, doing social listening, and also creating content on our own. And it's really diving into our community. When you have a global audience of like 6 million plus people, there's always something going on, when you're in 40 plus countries, there's definitely always something going on. So a lot of the time was spent in the trenches, not a lot of, maybe what might be typical for a director is to kind of sit back and just worry about strategy and, dealing with upper management. I was in the trenches every single day, managing accounts, answering DMs, working with influencers, working with our professional athletes, getting ready for upcoming campaigns, just really hands-on in the field type of stuff.
So so you worked, what's so cool about, you had the experience working, obviously at an agency, and then you went to Spartan. Mm-hmm. What did you find? Because this is something, we report back to our clients, specifically on metrics. And, sometimes in the PR world, that's harder to tie back. It's changed a little bit now that, digital and PR go hand in hand. But what did you find that leadership, whether it was a client or say like, the leadership at Spartan, what were they most interested in terms of like metrics and reporting?
Yeah, I think that metrics are always a little tricky and it depends on, who you're working with. But I would say one of the main KPIs was just, how many impressions are we getting? How many people are seeing our content, seeing our brand? Because we want to, what was a very popular term for us, always make noise. Yeah. So that we're top of mind, So I would say that's probably the number one thing. And then, next you will look at, are we growing in followers and, what does that look like? Because typically there's a direct correlation between, impressions and followers. So I would say more times than not, those are the two main things that, leadership is looking at.
So, what were some tools that you used? Like you hear people use all sorts of different tools, and I think it's changing constantly. What did you use to help kind of manage your team? What did you use maybe to schedule social? What were some of the major tools that you used?
Yeah, I was a big fan of Sprout Social. We tapped into some other ones like Later and Buffer and so on. But Sprout Social was our main kind of like all-in-one tool. And then we also use some project management tools from, Smart Sheets and Google Drive and, a few other things, that we tried out. But for the most part, Sprout Social and all the Google Suite products were our main things.
Awesome. Okay. So this is a fun one because I noticed that you've through Spartan, you've done stuff with NBC and ESPN and Facebook. So I want to talk about your experience with that. What was the best part? What was the craziest part?
Yeah. So that whole experience was great. I mean, think about you're building a brand, you're part of a small but large team at the same time. you have this sport that's, just coming to the forefront. It's not your major 3 or 5, and it's a very particular sport, right? So being able to be in those meetings with major media companies like NBC and Facebook and ESPN was awesome. Just to be able to have that seat at the table and kind of present them an opportunity like, hey, this is an emerging sport. We have a worldwide community. People love this brand. They love the sport, and here's an opportunity to kind of be at the forefront of bringing this to even more people. So yeah, I mean, it was super awesome sitting down with all these sport partnership teams and talking about all the opportunities and getting them on board to support live broadcast or help us develop kind of like a game show reality series, which was called Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge on NBC. And then we had kind of like the high level professional aspect on NBC Sports, and then getting Facebook and ESPN on board. It was just really cool to see like how you can work on something and get some credible names to back you up and really put that in front of millions of people.
And to start, and then like, I always think like when you start working on like a project or you start working on something and to see that come all the way to fruition, like it's like super powerful. Like sometimes you just sit back and you're like, I did that. I seriously did that. Like, I still can't believe it myself.
And I would be, let's say, out at a bar on a weekend, just watching sports. And then next thing you know, you'll see Spartan on NBC and you're like, wait a minute, like that's the company I work at. That's really cool.
Guys, I work there. I work
there. Like, everyone's looking at you like, what's wrong with you? I'm like,
yeah,
whatever.
okay, buddy.
Like,
sure you
don't understand. But then I'll see myself on the screen because, at the events, I would be working media and shooting content. So like me and my social team and the production team and our video team, we will see ourselves and we'll send each other texts like, yo, we were just on ESPN. We were just on NBC. So that part, it's kind of even makes it more cool to see, your hard work come to life.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like the coolest thing. Well, and that kind of leads into, before I talk about the evolution of social media marketing, I mean, that's a big subject as it is. Yeah. What do you wish companies and brands maybe truly understood about social media? And like, to me, I think if I were asking myself that question as it relates to PR, because that's most of my background, I would say the amount of time that goes into doing what we do, and the effort, like, so talk a little bit about that, because social media is 24/7. It's not like your profile or shuts off while you're sleeping.
Oh no. I mean, one of the biggest things for me is understanding the value and appreciating that social media is not a fad anymore. It's not just a nice to have asset to your marketing plan. It's a very crucial and pivotal part to it, because it feeds the top of the funnel. And it really helps with the awareness consideration of your brand, and it supports every other aspect of your marketing strategy, from email to just organic search to everything, especially on the paid side. Social proof is becoming something that every brand needs if they really truly want to develop an audience and turn, someone that has interest into a customer. Because, I mean, you and I both know it. The first thing you do when you hear about something new is go to their social. And you want to see what they're about. So,
well, it's more so than a website anymore. Yeah. People go to the Facebook page.
That's it. It's your first touch point with a consumer. So, I wish there was a little bit more understanding around that, amongst senior leadership and maybe some people that have, traditional ways of thinking and maybe have been in the marketing industry for a long time and are just now seeing social and how it's making an impact. And then off of that, I feel like, if there is an understanding and valuation of social, then putting the proper resources and investment behind it. Too many times I'm coming across fellow social professionals that are one-person teams. And I feel like, no matter the size of your brand, you could be a small business or you could be a Fortune 500 company. To think one person is enough, it's not okay. And it's not right. It's not fair. We talk about the topic of burnout and, all those things, mental health issues. It's not okay. Because, we are on the forefront. We're the front line of defense for companies, especially when people are upset. So, to have to do that plus handle, strategy and campaigns and scheduling and copy and content creation and community management all together, plus other things. It's really tough. So I would just wish there would be more investment into resources, across the board.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more, because I think we actually had a conversation today with the client, and we were talking about, we're doing media, like National Media Forum, and he has a very traditional mindset as it relates to marketing. And I said, you've ignored your social. One of the first things, like if I'm pitching to a reporter, one of the first things they're going to do is go try and find you on Twitter. They're going to do a search for you on other social. And if you haven't posted in 2 years, or you're posting inconsistently, that right there impacts what your credibility.
Exactly.
So like your social is often the first, and it's an interactive. It used to be like, I'm older, so I can say this, but it used to be all you did was push your message out, and that was marketing. That's not the way the world is anymore. Now it's a conversation. It's 2-way. So 3-way, 4-way. So I think understanding even more so, like to your point, how social and digital literally touches every aspect of communications. It's integrated communications. You can't get away from it. Everything impacts everything else. So I'm glad you said that. But that actually kind of goes into like the evolution of social media. Because to your point, like you said, now it's not a choice. I remember, like, this still cracks me up. I remember when I was trying to get people to, like, clients, I'd be like, we should get you on Twitter and you should send out those tweets. And I was like, if they would just give these names that were not like sounded like realistic, instead of me trying to tell somebody to be on Twitter, or, so that kind of goes into the evolution a little bit, which I would love for you to talk about, even in, since you were at Spartan and previously before that, when you were at the agency.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all technology, it's definitely has evolved. And, when you see all these new features that come out, and, they all gravitate towards, either building more connections and building more communities, or allowing creative people to become, more creative and become content creators. And I think TikTok did an amazing job with that when they went from Musical.ly to TikTok, and just giving people that kind of, confidence to be a creator, no matter, what you look like, where you're from, and, whatever space you're in. And then stories. I know stories is a little shaky, because now every single platform has stories. Which
oh my gosh, I know.
Interesting, but But I think the notion of short form vertical content, really helped. And I feel like they did that because that's the typical user behavior. You have a very short attention span. Your phone is literally vertical. So that it makes sense to go in that direction. But I think overall, where social was to where it is now, it's evolved where, people have more of a voice now. And before, social was kind of like, trying to figure it out. Where does it fit? Am I just posting, food pictures, or am I posting vacation stuff? And of course, a lot of that stuff still, exists now, but I think people are more matter of fact about their content, even as like an everyday user, and I look a lot at, the new generation, kids that are maybe in high school or in college, like they barely post. And when they post, it's like something that means something to them. And they get amazing engagement, sometimes more than like some brands that I would work with. And I'm like, wow, like this person's getting thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, and they have literally 1,000 followers. Like brands would die for that. So I just think that everyone's become a lot more sophisticated in social for the most part. I'm not saying everyone, but the majority has. And, all the new features definitely is pushing people into the right direction of, finding out which platform works for you, and, how you want to utilize it. If you still want to stay close to families, hang out on Facebook. If you want to be creative and entertaining, you have TikTok, and if you want to start discussions and talk about topics, Twitter's there for you, so it's fine. I think now more than ever, you can find your home on social and find your community, and you have a place where you can, be nurtured by them and have fun connecting.
Yeah. So that kind of, because I saw, you had said some things about like organic versus paid. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because I know I've talked to colleagues and they struggle really, because it seems more pay to play, at least on some of the platforms. I'm not putting them all in that same bucket, but you said don't rule out the importance of organic. So I want to touch on that a little bit and kind of see what you mean and what your advice is for companies and brands.
Yeah, my biggest thing is that, you can't take away from what organic social can do for you when it relates to your paid strategy, because I feel like organic is a free testing ground for your eventual paid strategy approach. And you're able to kind of test, okay, does this type of content resonate with my current audience? And does it not? So, and then from there, you kind of take those key learnings and apply it to your paid approach. Plus, chances are if it's performing well on organic, you should boost that or promote that a little bit to get it in front of more people because it resonated with your audience. And then also, you're kind of able to get feedback from your audience and as consumer insight and community feedback and take that as, learnings and applying that to your strategy and say, all right, when we posted this type of content, we got this response from our audience. Either they liked it or they didn't. Here's how they kind of, vocalize their thought on it. So maybe there's some ideas there, social listening on the organic content side, I think is everything for paid. And then, on top of that, working very closely together as a paid and organic team, I think is very crucial, because there's a lot that the organic team can provide back to the paid team, from that community feedback and just also kind of living in, that active world of users every single day. I think paid, the benefit is that you can really target out who you're going after.
Yeah.
And it's very specific detail, which I think is amazing. But with that, you also have to really develop the content specific to each of those demographics. Like it cannot be a one size fit all for everyone. If you appeal to 18 to 45-year-old male and female, you can't serve the same ad to both parties. There's so many, micro audiences within that. So I think that's where organic can help, because you can test those things out. You can see what the different tone of voice is when you're speaking to, females or males within a certain age with certain interests and so on and so forth. So, I think overall it's super important that those teams work closely together, and they should be as gelled as they possibly can be.
I didn't even ask you this. What are all the social networks you're on?
Personally, as myself, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I recently just deleted Snapchat from my phone just because for me, the user experience kind of didn't serve the purpose of, for me anymore.
Yeah.
But I was a user for a while and I really enjoyed it for what it was worth. I'm also on Pinterest, but that's just more from like a, inspirational cool things that I see. I want to gather that.
Yeah.
And YouTube for like just instructional things that I want to learn. I just got into golf, so I'm like trying to learn the perfect golf swing every single day. So studying videos.
One of the most frustrating sports ever. Yeah.
I love it. It's great.
No, I do too. Mostly just the drinking on the cart, but the golfing's fine as well. Yeah. So, I tried Snapchat for like a hot second. I'm pretty sure my account's still out there and I never deleted it. And I was like, wow, this is confusing and I don't know where to engage and what things keep disappearing. Yeah. And I was like, that's when I was like, okay, now you're old. You've just gotten old. You sound like your grandma on Facebook that's literally signing love grandma on her posts. So congratulations. Yeah.
No, I think they changed it around. They wanted to find their own lane, especially with IG stories coming out and TikTok. Yep. So, I think they went more the media route and, working with brands that way and, that being the source. And the one-on-one connection thing, I don't know. It was always a little confusing for me too. Yeah. It was just like, okay, I feel better. I actually have followers or how exactly am I communicating with people? Right. Is it, their filters are amazing. My wife, she just lives in those filters. So,
I have friends that would like do a filter and then take a screenshot and send it to me. And I was like, okay.
Exactly. So, but you didn't really ask, but my favorite, I would say I definitely have a few favorites when it comes to social. Please tell me. I love Twitter. I think Twitter for me now, and I've been on it since 2009. I'm like, I never really use it. It was just like once in a while you jump on it. But this year has caused, I think, a huge rise in Twitter. Yeah. And for me, like just the social media community and the marketing Twitter has been a big lifesaver in terms of like mental health and just another like outlets. You kind of just get people's opinions and share stories. So Twitter for me, where I am in my career and as a social media person, Twitter is absolutely phenomenal. And then I would say TikTok is definitely number two. Just all around, just great at educating, great at entertaining, and their algorithm is just flawless in my opinion.
Yeah.
You get the stuff that you want to see.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I just signed on and it's just literally just to watch, but because I was like, I don't think I'm there yet. I don't think anyone's going to find me entertaining on TikTok, but I'm going to at least watch everything. So it's funny what you say about Twitter though, because same with me. I'd been on it. I remember when it first came out, I was using it a lot because, but then it was like, I got to a point and I was like, I just kind of stopped. And then this year, I am on it every single day and I'm getting sucked into I feel like Twitter truly appreciates my sarcasm, some people just don't get it, but people on Twitter do. So yeah, but that's funny because it's interesting that you knew that there has been an uptick because I don't think anybody's surprised, but still.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a big uptick. And I think earlier this year, LinkedIn also saw a big uptick.
Yeah.
In content and user activity on that platform. And maybe I don't know if it's just me or if other people see this too. I kind of feel like that slowed down a little bit in the past 2-3 months. And I'm not sure why, because it was great. I mean, I was seeing some great stuff on there. Now I think that things kind of have opened up in the sense of people are starting to rehire now, and but at the same time people are still being laid off and furloughed. So it's a interesting standpoint. But I remember speaking with the LinkedIn team, and they're saying they're seeing numbers that they've never seen before in terms of just new content being created on there. So,
well, and it's great too, because I published several articles through there. What I have seen recently is a lot more political posts than I appreciate, because I like to go to LinkedIn for it to be professional. Now, I don't have any problem telling you what I think in that realm, but I'm not going to do it on LinkedIn,
that's not a good idea.
No, I don't think so either. So, but okay. So getting back, I have a few additional questions, and then we're going to do the icebreaker because I totally forgot to do it at the beginning, and I have some good ones. So, so if a company's building like a social media team, what is your recommendations? We already know, don't just hire one person and expect them to do it all, because that's you're just a jerk then, and that doesn't make any sense. So what is your advice for a company?
My advice is to at least start with the core basic stuff. So you got to have someone who leads the team, director level type person. And that director is going to need their right-hand person, a manager, to execute and manage the channels with them and just really be in the trenches together. And I think it's absolutely critical to have that third piece to be a community manager. And people might say, well, should the social manager do that? And yeah, I think they could definitely share those responsibilities, but depending on your brand and depending on how much you want to engage, not only with your own channels, but with your audience in general who are populating that social network, because you can jump into hashtags, you can go into, other conversations, and really, position yourself as a thought leader that way. I think it's crucial to have that. And then you need creators, you need people that can design and edit, and shoot content. So for me, that's the core stuff, because, other people say, well, you need an analyst, you need a strategist, you need so on and so forth. I think some of those things can be taken on by the director and call it senior manager or right-hand person. But you need at least those, 4 pieces of the puzzle to have a very solid team and to go out there and execute against that strategy and be effective. So
I want to talk influencers a little bit, because that's something that I see a lot of in my world, in the world of public relations, but it's also influencers exist in, the social media world. So talk a little bit about I don't know, just your thoughts in general on influencers, the role that they play, and, maybe an interesting experience that you had with one. I think we all have these stories. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, from a high level, I think influencers are great. I think a lot of brands approach it maybe not in the best way at first, and how they value what makes someone influential. and I think for a long time that's always been based on the follower count.
Yeah.
And, I think hopefully those that have gotten a little bit more sophisticated and did their own due diligence and their own research see that there's other metrics to look at, engagement rate and, how active they are, how they create content, just things like that. So I think that there's tremendous value in it if you have the right approach and you're finding the right people that truly have an affinity for your brand and your brand's mission. And I think who does a great job at that, is Gymshark, because I think, they really built their brand off of influencer marketing. So during my time in the space of, fitness and apparel, I always looked at, what they did because I felt like they were a best in class brand and they leveraged influencers a lot, and I remember hearing their CEO say that the talent that they brought in on the influencer ambassador side, they could have 1,000 followers or they could have a ton. But what really helped them stand out was how were they applying their personal brand? What kind of difference were they making in the space of fitness and health? And, were they truly a part of the same mission? And I feel like a lot of brands look to influencers as a quick fix and a quick way to try to get some sales and some leads. And, I think that's what hurts the industry a little bit when you go that route. And, when you see a person that's posting hashtag sponsored or hashtag ad in every post and it's a different brand, it takes away from the value of what you're trying to accomplish. But if you see that person is an ambassador and a true fan of your brand and long-term doing stuff with you, in my eyes, I'm trusting that influencer a lot more than, I don't want to point out any brand names, but that's, taking photos of tees 1 second and then, waist straps another second. Just like, all right, we get it. You charge $100 a post.
Yeah. I like how you differentiated it though. You call it's ambassadors versus influencers. I like that. That's because, to your point, they're an ongoing supporter of the brand. And I think if you are engaging an influencer, it should be a long-term relationship. It shouldn't just be a post for, like you said, $200, $250, or, God, $1 million of your Kardashian. I don't know. So, but I agree.
And I also think you want to look at the value of the audience that person is going to bring to your channel, and like, yes, there's a time and place for everything. But if I personally, if I'm setting up an influencer campaign and I'm going to pay you, to create content and to, draw attention to my brand, I want to make sure that your audience has the opportunity to become a customer or a fan of my brand, and it's not just, I don't want to go the route of like, all right, I just want to report a high number and say, all right, senior leadership, I got somebody with 1 million followers to post on their gram. We saw an increase of followers of, 15,000 from them. And then because they did some sort of giveaway, follow this account, tag 3 friends, that style. And then the following week, once the winners are announced, you lost 13,500 of them. And then those 1,500 others that are still there, they're passive followers now. They're not even really engaging with your content because they just forgot that they followed in the first place. So to me, I'd rather take the approach of, all right, this person has an audience that is engaged. And if it's fitness, let's say, they're following you because you do great fitness instructional content. And us as the brand, we have another product that can be great for them, either equipment or, other training programs. So by you bringing your audience to us and us sharing the audience, we're bringing value to each other. And to me, that's the proper partnership when working with influencers and ambassadors.
So you really have to have great content to start out. And that content has to be attractive to like whatever influencer or ambassador you might want to work with, or taking that influencer and almost making them an ambassador.
Yeah. I mean, to answer the second part of your question, like I've run into times where, you have your great ambassadors and influencers who understand and they're asking like, hey, like, how can I be a partner with you? And how can we build together where you're supporting my initiative and vice versa? Like, that's a great partner. And then you have the other side is like, they just want to know how much they're getting paid. And it's like, all right, thank you. See you later. And they move on to the next, sponsored ad. So, that's been my experience, on the negative side of working with people that just, they're, which no fault to their own. I think the industry has allowed that to happen. they're just looking for the next deal. And, I think I've seen a little bit of a change in that, but, of course that stuff is still out there.
Yeah. It's much more short-sighted.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah. And it just feels kind of like icky. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's how, some of the time experiences I've had. Yeah, very much so. So, okay. So what's next for you before we talk about, we go into, what you're reading and how you stay up to date? Cause you're making a change. So here's your spotlight. Let's promote you.
Well, so I left Spartan, in early October, mutual terms, great, love everybody there, wishing them the best. I know they just had a great content series that just came out, Spartan Games, which I had a chance to work on a little bit before I left. So definitely, look at them as, good friends and wish them the best. So, I took a little time off, 4 years is a long time, and global company, you're always on, definitely very stressful. I used to have a long, locks of hair and no. But
me too. I didn't have any wrinkles on my face. I looked like I was 20 all the time.
Yeah,
so
I'm actually 15. But,
I mean, what?
But I took some time off just to kind of reflect and find myself a little bit and kind of, just let go of some anxiety and pressure and just really kind of test myself and see where I was as a social professional and learning about marketing, Twitter, and the community that's out there. I wanted to kind of just connect with people and get an understanding of where the space was and where is everybody right now. And, that's what's been so great about the Twitter community. We all have very relatable experiences and stories. And then I also took to LinkedIn and started to build my professional network a lot more. And, I looked across both the sport and entertainment space and agency world and, and connected with, VPs and CEOs and CMOs and just educated them on who I was. Yep. Not really asking for a job, because I feel like that's not the best approach for anyone that's looking for a job. Don't send a LinkedIn message or a connection.
Please stop. Yeah,
and ask for a job.
Stop. This is our PSA. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do it, please. But instead, make sure that you're asking for advice and you want to learn about their company and their industry and their experience, and then, get the opportunity to educate them on yourself. And that's what I did for the past, month and a half. And I've been able to come across some great people that, given me their time. And, I'm very grateful for that. Some of the, big industry leaders within sports and the agency world, so just really been focused on that. And obviously, throwing my hat and resume into the mix. And, thankfully, which I know it's a very hard time right now for a lot of people, I've had some great interviews and, I'm talking to some amazing companies, and I'm excited for, what's hopefully coming very soon, and just super excited to join a team and be a part of, the strategy process and the daily grind and, work with some amazing people, being home and being in this whole quarantine COVID thing. It's tough on everybody, but, been just trying to act as life as normal as possible and, just ready for my next move.
I mean, I'm not wearing any pants right now. So isn't that like the norm? I mean, right?
No pants. So business up top.
Right. Exactly. So one of the things that I really appreciate, and I think is important to call out about what you just said, is that you took time. That this is an industry very similar to PR where you burn out. Yeah. And if you don't take the time to step away and take care of yourself, and, I think about the only good thing 2020 has maybe given us is the fact that it's taken the stigma away from mental health and a discussion around it slightly. So, absolutely. Because everyone right now is dealing with it. Like we all have pandemic fatigue. It's just a lot. So the fact that you knew and you essentially said, this is what's going to be the best thing for myself, and I have to do it. Like, I think more people need to do that. And so I think that's a phenomenal thing. I hope people really take that away when they're listening to the podcast, is like, you got to just like give yourself a break sometimes. So I'm really, really happy that you said that.
Yeah. Thank you. And like, of course I thought about it. I didn't have to step away from the position. I could have stayed, but I really looked at the conversations that were happening on social about, mental health and burnout. I thought about where I was in my career, and I thought about my own health, and yeah, of course it was a very difficult decision. And, I spoke with my wife about it, and there's other implications that are involved, so it's not just like, hey, just want to leave. And
no,
that's it. No, really, you have to make a hard decision and you have to think it through. But you have to take care of yourself because
absolutely,
this is one life to live, for what we know. So you got to make the best of it.
All right. So last question, and then we get into the icebreakers, and then I promise I'll let you go, but this has been a great combo. Okay. So what are you reading and what do you like? I mean, I think Twitter is a good answer in terms of like industry trends and stuff like that, but is there like any blogs that you're like, you have got to read this, or, any books out there, which I think are always hard to write books on social media because it changes just like that. But, there's some out there. So
I would say I'm a very digital person, and I'm not like, I've never been into books. Like you're not going to see a shelf behind me with books, even for decoration. I'm not doing that. I'm not that dude. I don't like books at all. But I definitely listen to a lot of podcasts, the business of social media, the science of social media, Social Pros, Social Media Examiner, so I really look to, a lot of those resources. And, of course, your Gary V's of the world are always going to be impactful. I think, for him, that was my morning commute listen for like a year straight. You kind of need that pep talk when you're going into the city and, you have a long day ahead of you. But I think there's a lot of resources out there. You have to find what fits your style.
Yeah.
And eventually, which I think is even more important, you have to figure out like how you can kind of become your own best asset.
Yes.
So you take all the advice from the Garys and the Social Media Examiners and so on, Jay Bears and everybody, and you start to kind of build your own thought process.
Yep.
And you have to start practicing your profession. And I think that's why I gravitated towards Twitter this year, because I was like, okay, I have notes upon notes of what other people have said, but what about what I have to say?
Right.
And then putting that to practice, I think helps you in your profession, and it helps you in your work effectiveness as well. So I always keep my ear to the ground and try to come across, any new, article or reference or resource that comes out. But I also like to listen to just other people in the industry too.
Yeah.
I think they're an amazing source of inspiration and information too.
Yeah. I always find I tend to feel overwhelmed sometimes. Like I wish I could stuff more things into my brain so I could know more. But I also do think, to your point about, being your best asset, like everybody has a different lens in how they view the world. And I think it's important, and you bring some very unique experiences to the table that other people don't have. And I think that's what we all have to remember is that, I come at things a lot of times as a business owner and what that looks like, or being a female in the industry. And so I think that it's important that like we are using ourselves as well as like, I guess, our ambassadors, for lack of a better word. But so no, And me, I have that bookshelf of books behind me. And I promise you it's not for, I told you I'm old. I can't do Snapchat. And you would think like I'm 50. I'm not, but I'm like, I like the feel of books and the smell of books. And everyone's like, just get a Kindle, Bodhi. And I was like, no, can't do it. I got to order all these books. So yeah. Okay. So here's the last part. This is a fun one. Okay. And you cannot, this is a good question. If you were on Jeopardy, what's one category you would ace? And you cannot say digital because we already know that.
Oh man. It would have to be a toss up between sports trivia and music trivia.
Okay. What? Yeah. Okay. Genre of music? Or just
I mean, I feel like I know music as a whole.
Country?
Okay. I have some work to do there. Some work to do there for sure. But I would say definitely hip hop, it would be a big one, house music as well. But yeah, I mean I know music pretty well.
Mine would probably be like Star Wars. Because I'm also Star Wars. Or like if Goonies was ever going to be like a category. Have you seen Goonies?
I have.
Okay. You just got major brownie points there. Because my whole team is young and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I feel like they have, before they come and work for me, I have to make them watch it. And then they're all like, why? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay. Last question. What's the worst thing you did as a child that you got away with?
Wow. The worst thing I did as a child. I don't know if I want to put myself on blast like that. That's
Yeah. Cause your mom's going to be calling you.
yeah. Like you did that. Man, I've never really been asked this question, so kind of stumbling on that a little bit. The worst thing I did as a child, I don't know. I would say probably just run around the neighborhood, and I don't know if rock throwing is still a thing that kids do, but definitely like go on abandoned, train tracks and just grab rocks and just start breaking windows, for no reason. Almost got caught once. Had to like just run away from the cops and jump over fences.
See, that's a pretty good story. See, now you have been asked this, so you could better hone the story. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I will say, like, probably one of the boys in my neighborhood that, like, when I would ride my bike around, one of them stuck us like a stick in the spoke of my bike, and I totally flipped it. And everyone's like, "Well, that just means he likes you." I was like, "Really? I just thought it meant he was trying to kill me." So, but yeah, probably
it's about the same thing.
I mean, whatever.
I think my wife tries to kill me every day, so I think.
Well, that's fair. You are also in quarantine together, so that is very you cannot blame her for that. So make her listen to this so she knows. Yeah.
I will, definitely.
Well, thank you so much for being on. You have been officially hustled. And my little slogan, which my staff all mocks me about, is that we will, for everybody listening, we will see you on the download. And they just think that's hilarious. So, but you've been hustled, Anthony. Thank you for being on. You were amazing. I know our listeners are going to love this.
Appreciate you so much. Thank you.